So who goes first? Who's on first?
You are.
Who's on first? So as we enter 2025, what do you believe our members should be paying attention to regarding all the key issues impacting our industry?
About 3 or 4 years ago, in speeches, I would say that here are the top 3 or 4 issues impacting real estate. And at that time, I put climate risk or climate change as number 3 or 4. Today, I think it's without a doubt number 1. It's going to be the thing that mostly impacts the real estate industry. Now we got the lawsuits, we've got interest rates, we got shortages, but all of that comes and goes, that changes. But this one's going to kind of be with us. Let me just give you some facts. Texas is the 3rd most expensive state for home insurance, which probably if you've got yours lately, you know that. $2,300 is the average premium for a home in Texas. Florida and Texas have seen some of the slowest home value in the U.S. during the past year due to climate risk, rising insurance costs, and higher property taxes. So that's impacting Florida and Texas. 44% of all homes in the U.S. are at risk of severe or extreme damage from environmental threats. Here's a quote in the Wall Street Journal: "We're marching towards a future where insurance is not going to be available or affordable," said Dave Jones, who served as California's insurance commissioner. State Farm last year said it wouldn't renew 30,000 homeowner policies in California. 69% of those were in Pacific Palisades neighborhood, which is where the fires hit. California's state plan of last resort, called the FAIR Plan, has 451,000 policies in effect, up 40% up this year, 40% more than last year. And those are capped at $3 million replacement value. And yet the typical home in Pacific Palisades was $3.4 million. So that means way more than half of the homes that were destroyed won't get full coverage. Here's one that hits home. Travelers Insurance just advised Rene Galvan yesterday that they will not renew his homeowner's insurance next month on his home, which sits on the Guadalupe River in New Braunfels. How many of you agree that they canceled his policy due to the potential of flooding? Raise your hand. Does anybody disagree? 1.
Renee.
The notice said, "We won't renew your policy," beginning of March, I think, "because it's located in an area with high or extreme brush fire exposure." Not because of flooding, even though it's sitting on the river, but because of brush fire. Now, we all say, well, thank God we live in Texas because we don't have brush fires. According to CoreLogic, which is probably the biggest data repository of any company, that also provides Matrix. Does anybody have Matrix? Yeah, well, they provide Matrix. They say that Texas ranks number 3 with the highest number of homes at risk from wildfires. The 3rd most dangerous state in the United States due to wildfire destruction of homes. We're beginning to see disaster discounts for homes in areas that are vulnerable to flooding and wildfires. Today, the Wall Street Journal reported climate change is about to wipe out $1.5 trillion in U.S. home values, according to First Street, due to what I just said, due to the disaster discounts. We're going to see annual insurance premiums, and we're already seeing this in some places, representing 6% of the value of the home. So just imagine 6% of the value of your home, writing a check every year for insurance. Mortgage companies will be required to add full insurance premiums and climate risk into their approval decisions. They're being mandated now to do that. Insurance and taxes combined now cost more than many mortgages. Imagine that. Insurance and taxes cost you more than your mortgage payment. And more than 80% of U.S. home buyers now consider climate risk when purchasing a home. And that growing demand in our consumers, in Roz's 20 focus groups of consumers said basically the same thing. And that growing demand has led Zillow, Realtor, Homes, and Redfin to put climate risk data on every one of your listings on their websites. So the 4 top portals for real estate in the country have all of our listings, your listings, and every one of them have flood and fire risk on the listing. Let me just see, I'm about to get rid of that. So now let me bring one thing up. For the last 18 months, the HRS Board of Directors and some staff have been working on a project with the state of Texas and Texas A&M University to provide consumers climate risk data because our consumers told us they want it. In every focus group, that was one of the top things that they wanted. And our 4 major competitors already have it on their websites. So agents went on Facebook on our platinum deal and said the sellers don't want it, but the seller becomes a buyer the minute he's no longer a seller. And guess what? That seller buyer now wants it. So we're in a dilemma here of the consumer over here and some of our members over here, and that's a bad place to be when they're that far apart.
Hey, Bob, let me ask you this. In a situation like that, what kind of risk does it put us as an association at if we have all this information and access to data?
Well, Grant's here, and he's the attorney. I'm an attorney, but I don't practice, okay? I'm a retired attorney. But if I'm buying a house and it floods after I buy it, and I find out that the realtor had access to this data but chose not to give it to me, I think that's a lawsuit. Now, the realtors are saying, but if we put it on there, that's a lawsuit. No, it's not, because you're not telling them anything. You're providing a third-party source of information, and then you tell them to check it out themselves.
If you don't mind, I do think we should have that data available. The problem that I saw with it was I checked out 4 or 5 different properties, and the information was really misleading. Like my house alone, I checked mine first. No flooding at all, but it was moderate to high risk for flooding. Total claims in my neighborhood, $11,000. Another neighborhood that was low to moderate risk, $271 million in claims.
You're right. Yeah. Again, we didn't develop this. A&M University. Yeah, but we're working on it. We're not making it live yet. We're working on it. Now, and the other thing that has caught my eye is somebody in the Facebook said, let's go down and picket the HR office and let's call the media. Come on, are you serious? Do you know what the headline would be? In the Chronicle on the front page, realtors refuse to give climate information to buyers. I mean, my God, we would look horrible. I couldn't even conceive of somebody thinking to do that. But anyway, that's that issue. So it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to be tougher to deal with. So then,
Segueing from that, are we at the end of litigation, or do you think there's more to come?
Well, the DOJ has reopened its investigation into, they don't like NAR's clear cooperation policy, and they also don't like NAR's no commingling rule. Now, HAR's MLS has private per seller status, which means if the agent puts it in there, it complies now with clear cooperation because it's in the MLS. The consumer can't see it, though. It's not going to be on HR.com. It's not going to be on Zillow. Not going to be in the data feeds to IDX. But all the agents will see it, and the listing broker can advertise it and promote it. So we've kind of gotten around that legal impediment where they could sue us. And then the other thing is we have never made the portals, we've never not allowed them to commingle. I think virtually every large MLS has done the same thing. So we're kind of, so we don't have a legal problem, I don't believe, from those two. The DOJ's also made it clear that they don't want listing brokers and sellers to make offers to buyer agents, even outside the MLS. Just don't do it. And now some of the attorneys that represent large MLSs, the largest MLSs, are saying don't do it. It's the next lawsuit that's going to hit you. And they oppose the requirement that an agent have the buyer sign an agreement before they do a showing. They said NAR should not impose a nationwide rule. That should be up to each state, each association, each MLS. So basically, the DOJ really doesn't like most of the NAR rules. And that's kind of where we are there. Now, as you all know, sellers sued NAR and the large brokers, and they won. They won a judgment of $5.4 billion. And NAR, the large brokers, paid them $1 billion. We were prepared to write a check for $3 million to settle it, but because NAR's settlement included us, we saved $3 million. So we're happy. Our large brokers are not happy. And so that's sort of a dilemma where we are. So that's kind of the litigation.
Okay. So all that being said, it sounds like the DOJ is still looking into everything. They're still watching us, and the settlement didn't wrap it all up.
No, and also, if you remember, under the Trump administration, the DOJ and NAR, they had a letter of agreement about if you make these changes, we won't investigate this any further. And we did. And then under the next administration, they started investigating us. NAR went to court to say, hey, we have an agreement. You can't investigate us. The court, as I recall, agreed with NAR, and then they appealed it, and the appellate court agreed with the DOJ, and then went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they said, we're not going to touch it. So right now, the DOJ has the right to investigate. That's all they want to.
Okay. Well, I mean, and it's like daily, we keep seeing more and more headlines.
Yeah.
There's constantly a barrage of new stories and new things going on. So what exactly is going on with NAR right now?
Well, here's the problem. Our dirty laundry is being shown to the world. If it was all in NAR's magazine and where the members saw the battle, that'd be one thing. But almost daily, there's a new story, either nationally or statewide, that makes us look bad. I mean, over and over. It's like an avalanche of bad news. And, I mean, I have more friends who, when we go to dinner, can't wait to ask me about, so what's up now with you guys? I mean, and they read this stuff like crazy. They're kind of become obsessed with the real estate industry. So if you look at, let's just look at what's going on with NAR. This is unheard of. 2 presidents in a row resign. The CEO resigns. The senior general counsel resigns. I mean, that's your power structure right there. Your president, your CEO, and Grant. I mean, that's like, holy cow. That's wiped out all the soldiers in one fell swoop. Then, so we've had the attorneys and the consumers suing us, okay, $5.4 billion. Now, the worst thing that could happen is your members turn on you. And now we're seeing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit by realtors and by associations suing NAR, mainly over the three-way agreement. There's a lawsuit, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, and Texas, saying, I want to be a member of HAR, I don't want to be a member of TR and NAR. Or I want to be a member of TR but not HAR and NAR. Leave it up to me. Don't make me pay all 3 dues. And this is We hear it from our members constantly, but now we're seeing lawsuits take place. In the Louisiana lawsuit, they say NAR has damaged all real estate professionals. They allege the ongoing scandals and legal issues surrounding NAR, including sexual harassment, which we just heard from a while ago, extravagant spending, and antitrust investigations have harmed the reputation of the entire industry and the realtor. The public's inability to differentiate, and this is a key point, between realtors and non-realtors ensures this damage extends to all real estate professionals. Because we, survey after survey, we know one thing. Consumers don't know the difference in a realtor and a non-realtor. To them, everybody's a realtor. It's Kleenex. It's really nice. Coca-Cola, but I'm drinking Pepsi. It's Xerox, but it's really not Xerox. So that's their they don't know the difference, and they don't care as long as it gets an MLS on Zillow and it sells. That's all they care about. And along with the changes, the plaintiffs are asking for damages of $10 million from NAR. So it's not just change your rules, it's change your rules and give us a whole lot of money. Now, the Alabama State Association of Realtors has called on NAR to let realtors join whichever group they want, break up the required three-way agreement. Two very large brokers in Arizona, Realty One and HomeSmart, have told their agents, you do not have to be a realtor to be a part of our firm now. Those are two of the very biggest in the state. New York Times article. Did anybody read that article about NAR spending? My God, if you didn't, you really should, just to see what consumers are seeing. The president of NAR was paid $400,000 a year as a volunteer. I mean, that was just one of numerous things. Then the New York Times came out with an article about the American Property Owners Alliance, which is funded by NAR dues money. And the article really covered a lot of stuff, but it said that RPAC and TREPAC basically give 50% to Republicans and 50% to Democrats. It's very evenly split across both parties. But this group that nobody really ever heard of gives primarily to really right-wing Republican groups. And so the article really kind of blew it up. Then you've got the American Real Estate Association that Mauricio Umansky, who owns the agency, is trying to start as a competition to NAR. And then maybe the worst part is the NAR settlement excluded the largest 92 brokers and major franchises who ended up paying millions of dollars, effectively turning them into what's called simmering enemies who may jointly decide to drop out of NAR. And that would be your largest brokers in the country who are, many of them are members of the Realty Alliance, and they're sort of really upset because they paid millions and millions and millions out of their own pocket. And then the Supreme Court, I said, refused to handle the appeal by NAR. Let's see. Now, one thing NAR recently did is they won a major lawsuit that about floor plans, because they were suing, making us liable for providing floor plans on the basis that the builder had a copyright to that. And the courts have held now, no, it's okay. So now we can do floor plans, and we should, because again, that was one of the top three things the consumers wanted. They insisted on floor plans. And so we know what they want. We offer two solutions. They're both free. Definitely use them. And then I read just last week, the U.S. Representatives has a white paper. It's about 50 pages long. It's not legislation, but it's kind of a wish list. And one of the things they really want is elimination of the mortgage interest deduction. So that would impact many of your clients as well. Lastly, about NAR, I'll say at the recent Inman Conference in New York, I was able to spend a day and a half with Nakia Wright, who's the new NAR CEO. And the second day, I actually spent an hour and a half in private with just me and her and Sherry Chris. And I'll tell you, I was very, very impressed with her. She is one very sharp lady. And I think if anybody can make some positive changes, she can probably do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are portals and brokers similar in your opinion?
How many of you subscribe to a streaming video service? I mean, who doesn't? I mean, all right, how many of you subscribe to 10 or more? I mean, it's crazy. So why do we do that? Because Hulu has one show you really want to watch. So you subscribe to it, then you forget about it. And then Apple TV's got one you've got to watch because everybody's talking about it. And then Prime, we got to. So you got all these streaming services. So why do you join each one? There's one reason. Because each of them has created exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you don't remember how to unsubscribe. So once you're in, you're kind of in. But the key to so much today is exclusive content, whatever that content may be. So the portals, Zillow yesterday was worth $20 billion, if you can imagine that. And CoStar is worth $31 billion, which is Homes.com. So together, those are worth $51 billion, which is probably more than if you took every broker in the entire industry. They wouldn't be anywhere near even remotely that in all the franchises. So that the money, the power is in those two entities. Now, what are they trying to do? Create exclusive content. So that if I want something, I got to go to Zillow, or if I want something else, I've got to go to Homes.com. Homes.com has got 1,000 people working on videotaping subdivisions. They're going to videotape every subdivision in America. Zillow won't have that. Homes will have that. They recently told me, Bob, we'll give it to you on HR.com. I'm like, wow, Claudia, what about that if we had every one in Houston? Well, there's a catch. You're going to link to their website to see it. So I said, no, I don't think we're not going to. Taki said, you're not going to leave HR.com to go to Homes.com to look at a subdivision. But Zillow's got the 3D floor plans, and Homes has got Matterport. So they're buying these companies that will give them exclusive content. So what are some brokers doing? In case you had noticed, some brokers don't like clear cooperation because they want to keep those listings on their website. So if consumers want to see that, they've got to come to their website and talk to one of their agents. That's same thing Hulu and Netflix and all the others are doing. Same thing Zillow and Realtor's doing. That's the way you build a stronger business. The other brokers don't like that. They want to have everything in one place. But what if a large broker was able to get exclusive content on their website, and then they said to Homes or Zillow or Realtor, for only X dollars, you can have my exclusive content, and I won't give it to Zillow or Realtor or Homes or whoever. This could very easily happen. This is kind of where we're headed, like the portals and like the streaming video. Does that make sense? I mean, you could just see it. You just see it happen. Now, the other thing I'll say, because this kind of is where we've had a little discussion about our board of directors, there's a fear by some agents that large brokers are trying to take over the association. The truth is, the large brokers are trying to take over the industry. They don't care about the association. That is not on their radar. It may be on their agent's radar, but it's not these national brokers. The association is not even in their thought process. But taking over the industry is definitely.
So then what's new with MLSs and associations?
Man, it's changing so fast. The Phoenix Association has just introduced what they call MLS choice. So they're saying you can, if you join the Phoenix Association of Realtors, you can be a realtor member, or you could be a non-realtor member and only get MLS access. And you won't get you won't get the education, you won't get criminal affairs, you won't get professional standards, but you get MLS. And in the AR said, no, you can't do that. We're going to take we're going to revoke your charter. So now they're in a big squabble. Renee and I had dinner with her CEO in Phoenix last week, and he said, we're going to win. There's no question we're going to win. But if they do, I promise you that is the start of the end. That will snowball like crazy. HAR has for probably 15 years allowed non-realtor members to join our MLS. And Sean, what we have, maybe 200 out of 49,000. I mean, literally a handful. And they get lock boxes and they get MLS access. They don't have to be a member of HAR, but they don't get TR forms. And without the forms, it's very hard to do business. So that's kind of the hook to keep people in the organization. Now, one thing, Austin, Unlock MLS. That's the name of their MLS in Austin. Unlock MLS. They just sent out information. The beginning June 1, they'll no longer require realtor membership in their MLS to join the MLS. You can be a non-realtor and you get forms because they're not going to use TR forms anymore. They're creating their own forms. That's the first of many to do that too. I mean, we're seeing so many major shifts that are kind of mind-blowing that they're all happening at one time.
So a non-realtor member could have access to transactional forms, and transact real estate just like...
If you join the Austin MLS, you get the lockbox MLS forms. Now, what do you think, HAR? And what do you think, Dallas, San Antonio? You think we're not going to do that? Of course, we will have to do it. Because now that we have data sharing with all four, and we have, very soon, we're going to have one large statewide broker who has a realtor door and a non-realtor door. So you can join that broker, be a member of any MLS in Texas, and as long as you're with one of the four large ones, you have access to all the listings. So you can live in San Antonio, join LPT, and join our MLS. And get the same thing as if you're a member of the San Antonio MLS. Now, why is that important to us? Because we've got MLS Platinum that no one else has. And the state wants it. I mean, every agent in the state would love it. So as this unfolds, and I don't mean over the next 10 years, I mean over the next rest of this year probably, we may have a whole lot more members to our MLS than we ever thought possible. Let me see. That's kind of it. There's a lot going on.
Well, and I'll say this, I support agents all across the state, my company, and we have agents all over the state who are members of HAR, specifically because of the Platinum tool.
Exactly. So any questions? We got a little bit of time.
I have a couple of questions, Bob. The first question is, why aren't we pushing back? It seems as though we're letting the disruptors push us, and we're not taking the aggressive side and pushing back. We're not telling the consumer how important we are in the transaction. And even at NAR, they folded the tent and just let it go. And that's why I think a lot of the members are upset. You just talked about contracts, and that bothers me because it's going to create a chaos situation. If every city has different contracts, then I've got to learn contracts all over the state, and all the transactions may be different. Maybe one here, one different here, and then we're going to have plenty of lawsuits going on. It just seems like we're not getting, I don't see any aggressiveness. I see people just letting it happen and not pushing back on the disruptors, because it's all about
the disruptors.
Well, the disruptors are companies that came in where we had rules. They knew what the rules were when they came in, and they wanted to play in the pen. And now they said, well, we're in the pen, let's change the rules to make our company more profitable.
Well, now you're talking about other realtors, and so it makes.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that the disruptors are creating, and who's going to be harmed the most? The consumer. The consumer's going to be harmed. And we are forgetting that the consumer is what's pushing this industry, is the consumer. And so until we start looking at the consumer, we're being pushed out the door. And I don't see anybody fighting back. That's what concerns me. I don't mind losing if I fought, but we'll just come on in.
Matt's got $1 million worth of ads on CNN and all over the place, TV. I see them all the time, promoting the realtor. The next slew of and HR.com. But the other thing we've got to promote is your listing on HR.com, where 3.5 million people are every month. They know it, but we got to remind them. And the only way to get it on HR.com is you get it in our MLS.
Well, but it's not just us. Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, we all got to do, we can't do it separately. We can't fight it by ourselves. Everybody's got to join in and make it work. Texas realtors need to join in. Louisiana, everybody's got to come together. And right now, everybody is separately doing their thing.
But we can't attack a member. I mean, we can't do that.
Well, I'm not saying attack.
Yeah.
But bring them to the table and say, this is what's going to benefit. Because all this other stuff
Yeah.
we've been doing is not working.
Yeah. I'll say about the forms, there's an easy solution to stop, and that is if TAR would license the forms to local associations at a reasonable price. But so far, that hadn't happened. So they're going to require us to do our own, which that's the last thing we want to do, but we don't have a choice. And once the 4 have forms, no one's going to use TR forms then, except the small, that'd be about 10 to 15% of the state would use their forms. So it's not in their best interest, but I don't think they see that yet. All right, I think we're out of time.
Thank you, Bob.
You bet.